Okay, so Island Park Reservoir, to wrap up this particular discussion, it acts like a supercharger. It does warm the water, it does increase turbidity, it does increase nutrients and productivity, but that's a part of what makes the aesthetics, the hatches, and the fish growth so great in the Henry's Fork. It's just the problem is with more pressures, with longer growing seasons, more droughts, and other ecological pressures throughout the watershed, that what we're concerned about is too much good, too much warming, too much turbidity, too much productivity that might have a negative impact on the hatches, aesthetics, and fish growth that make the $30 million economy or recreational fishing economy of the Henry's Fork. But has this happened yet? Kind of, but not really, not quite yet. There are things that we're concerned about, but in general, the water quality and the ecology of the Henry's Fork downstream of Island Park Reservoir is relatively healthy. It's as far as water quality effects on fish, we've not seen any detectable population effects of water quality on fish. We know that winter flow and water quantity is a big part of the amount of fish in the Henry's Fork. All water quality parameters are within limits. The rainbow trout growth limit is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Nobody gives them nearly enough credit for how warm of temperatures they can survive, so long as they've got enough oxygen and food. And dissolved oxygen in the Henry's Fork is really good so far. This is something that you can explore on our website. More study, though, is needed on the potential effect of increasing nutrients on that productivity and oxygen levels. This is something that is kind of what we consider a low risk, like a low probability event now, but a high risk of what is it? Am I putting that correctly? Like the potential outcome would be really bad, but right. For now, everything is very healthy. We know that the insect community is changing. Temperature, sediment, and nutrients affect some species. This is much more complicated, and this exists more as a plug for next week when we're going to be talking about hatches and insects more specifically. So we know that fish are, if there's any effect on fish, it's that they're changing potentially behavior, where they hang out. Hatches may be changing, but everything that we can derive from our data shows that individuals, communities, and populations of insects and fish are healthy, especially in terms of globally and regionally. They're very healthy. Go to the Big Hole River, for example, and ask them how things are going. They're not going to say it's going that great. But the fishing experience is definitely changing, and we know that there are things about the Henry's Fork right now and its water quality that are not living up necessarily to the expectations that were built in previous decades. So given the fact that the ecology is healthy and we've got good water quality, how do we keep up what's going on right now? Is there room for improvement? And how do we address these emerging risks of low dissolved oxygen, high nutrients, etc.? This is where the conservation solutions come in. Are there ways to lower water temperature, turbidity, and nutrients, address emerging risks, prepare for the future even if we're not seeing big impacts on the ecology yet? We know that starting with water is an effective solution. Reducing Island Park Reservoir draft and outflow benefits fish populations and vertebrate communities. And it also reduces, but does not necessarily eliminate, poor water quality export from Island Park Reservoir. This graph shows mean outflow from Island Park Reservoir on the x-axis and turbidity on the y-axis. In general, you reduce that mean outflow, you're going to reduce turbidity, but there are still situations where we've managed to reduce outflow, but turbidity, 2020, 2021, still hitting that 5 to 6 NTU threshold that generally affects people's perceptions of the river as well as their effectiveness when they're fishing. So we've come up with the DIRT plan, or the Developing Infrastructure to Reduce Temperature and Turbidity. How do we address the dirt, these negative things like excessive sediments and nutrient in the watershed, and how might we move some dirt, basically building stuff, to produce higher water quality for every drop of water that we manage to save? So this is all about developing design plans and collaborative connections to leverage additional funding. This includes starting at the source, preventing eutrophication in Island Park Reservoir. I highlighted, or I really emphasized the nutrient input study and reduction plan. you can do whatever you want in Island Park Reservoir. If you don't address the nutrients themselves, then whatever you do is just you're just setting the clock back a little bit, and you'll run back into the same problems in as little as a year or two to a decade or whatever. But there are other things that we can do: sediment stabilization, nutrient flocculation, algicides. This seems like, wow, you could spread stuff on the reservoir it's like a really big reservoir to do that. People have done it. Oxygenation, destratification, these have to do with either improving conditions in that stratified system or getting rid of the stratification altogether. That's something we're learning a lot about. I won't go into details right now. I would love to, but we've had some destratification event earlier this year that has completely changed the water quality in Island Park Reservoir this year. It's been a very strange year. But we could also do big infrastructure projects like preventing poor water quality entrainment into the Henry's Fork in the first place. Things like a variable elevation outflow gates or curtain could allow you, if you've got like this density current that delivered a bunch of sediment to the bottom of the reservoir, well, maybe you just take water from a little bit higher in the water column to prevent that sediment. You just wait for that sediment to fall out of solution in that situation. Also moving some dirt, going downstream. I mentioned that groundwater has a big influence on water temperature in parts of the Henry's Fork. Incidental aquifer recharge on Harriman State Park using their existing infrastructure. Is optimistic back of the envelope calculations say potential 50% increase in hyperrate groundwater input to Harriman. I feel kind of weird putting that up there because people way smarter than me need to actually work. People who understand groundwater need to work on that problem. But the takeaways here is that Island Park Reservoir is the center of the universe. Drought and human development drive that